I'm your host, Tiffany Chung, your go-to for all things marketing, mindset, and manifestation. I grew my online business from 0 to beyond 6 figures in 8 months. My purpose is to empower women to step into the highest, most aligned versions of themselves. If you are ready to take charge of your life, learn how to design a wildly successful business, and leave limiting beliefs behind, you've come to the right place. You will learn the actionable tips and step-by-step strategies on money, manifestation, and social media. It's time to step into your role as boss, to raise your vibration, and tap into your unlimited potential today. Welcome to the Social Reset Podcast. Hi, everyone. So excited to be here today. I am just feeling so lit up. I am feeling so in my magnetism. I'm just excited to talk about sourcing your own power, sourcing your own magnetism, and how that is directly correlated to the way that you create revenue and income and cash and clients and building your community and who you become as a leader, right? These are the things that allow you to step into your power and reclaim your power and uncover your power, right? Because it's not that power ever gets taken away from us. Right? It's like energy never gets taken away from us. It's the way that we transmute it. It's the way that we work with it, right? It's the way that we embody it. It's the way that we allow it to guide us. And so that is really the basis of this conversation is how can you source your own power? How can you create your own magnetism in a way that is not connected to anything that's outside of you, right? This is the basis of my work. This is the basis of how I teach and talk about magnetism and magic and manifestation, is that we're not reliant on things going well or feeling happy all the time, which is just not realistic, not human, right? And when we do put our, okay, well, I can only feel magnetic if this goes well. I can only feel fully energetic if this thing goes the way I want it to, right? Or I will only feel gratitude. I will only feel in my sovereign power if I get this yes from someone else. So we're constantly depending on things happening around us versus within us. And then this is such a small distinction, but it makes all the difference, right? And growing up in a traditional Chinese home and family, I mean, we never talked about mental health, right? I cried all the time growing up as a child. I was very emotional. I was very in touch with my emotions. And I grew up with these parents that were very like stoic, very just like to the point, very like matter of fact, right? And they weren't affectionate, right? I didn't hear I love you until I was in high school, which is the same as many other Asian, daughters of immigrants experiences. And I just remember feeling like such the oddball, like such the odd one out. I remember feeling like everything was so based on logic and facts and practicality and what other people told me was right and what my parents told me was right? And so when you grow up in such a society that's so logical, and I have these two parents that are extremely analytical, extremely logical, they're so like, just this is the way things are, right? And there was nothing in between. There was no room for magic. This is something I tell my students all the time is leave room for magic, right? If you can leave room for magic, if you can have, faith that gets you, if faith that gets you, to where you need to go, and then you leave room for magic to come in and kind of fulfill the rest. I mean, that's a beautiful way of running your business. And so It's just funny that that's my upbringing, a very logical, very analytical, very, practical way of seeing things. And then now I run a business that is fully, inundated and intertwined with magic and listening to my intuition and listening to my magnetism and my sovereignty, right? This is everything that I stand for. And the reason that this is so important is because of our personal power, right? What we get to create as human beings within our own power is so uniquely profound. Like, it is beyond what I believe any leaders and any systems of supremacy and oppression want us to know about ourselves and about what is possible, right? And I think that when we allow ourselves to step into a reality, if we can step into a space where we are being led by our own magnetism, we awaken that within ourselves and charge it on our own, and we source our own energy. We don't have to rely on things outside going well in order to tell us that things are going to pan out the way we want to, right? Because really what we're doing there is based on the past, here's how the future is going to go. Because I got heartbroken 3 times, I must get heartbroken again in this next relationship. Because these 3 people said no, this next person is probably going to be a no too, right? We're letting these experiences cloud what is the most important thing, which is the present, right? We're letting these experiences cloud and infiltrate what we could create in the present moment. And if we allow ourselves to actually step into the present moment, regardless of what's happened in the past, regardless of how we've been rejected, regardless of how we've been treated, regardless of what we've created in past lives, not necessarily past lives, but past eras of ourselves, right? And also past lives, then we get to dictate and create something that's completely different, has nothing to do with any of the experiences that have happened before. And the only way we can do that is in the present, right? And so one of the most underrated ways to step into your magnetism is being fully, completely present, like a hyper presence, right? That allows you to step into an experience where you are fully encapsulated by what is happening in front of you, right? You're not worried about, well, everything, all of this has happened in the past, or this might not happen in the future. You are fully in the present. How many times a day do we actually allow ourselves to be present, right? Even in a massage, we're like, I have to do this and this and this, and then afterwards I have to go doing this, and I have these errands to run, I have to go home and I have to cook dinner, and then what am I getting at the grocery store? Like, we're constantly thinking about, oh, all these things I must do, or all of these ways in which people have wronged me and I'm being plagued by this resentment and people I need to forgive. So our energy's always being pulled from one way to another, to another, to another. And we're never fully present in this exact moment. And when you allow yourself to be fully present, when you allow yourself to step into that magnetism, that belief, that ability, where you are fully present, you are fully fulfilled, you are sourcing your own energy, your own energetic capacity, that makes you completely unstoppable. That makes you the most magnetic person in the world, right? That makes you the most powerful person in the world. And we have such an imbalance of power, the way that we've experienced power by the hands of people, leaders, right? That have created mistrust, that have used power in ways that are, not in their highest good, not in the good of the conscious collective, right? So we get to rewrite that narrative, right? Just like I had to do so much money mindset work around people who have made tons and tons and tons and tons of money, right? Like this concept of like, well, if they have that much money, well, they don't have the right to complain about things because they have so much money, they can just throw money at things, right? I remember being so poor that I couldn't afford dinner, I couldn't afford meals, meals, right? I was on food stamps, and that was barely enough money for me to get by, right? And so there were so many ways in which I just thought, if I had enough money, if I had, a different reality around my financial situation, all of my questions would be answered. Everything would be taken care of. And then I started making money, and then I started making more money, and then I started making lots of money. And then I started realizing these thoughts that I had about people who had money, and these thoughts that I was having about myself. And then I realized that these thoughts were limitations I was placing upon myself and stopping myself from making more money because of the thoughts that I was having around these people who had money, who had power, right? And me not wanting to become like those people, not wanting to follow in those same footsteps, and then realizing I am nothing like those people, and I get to create a completely different reality around money, around wealth, around holding money, around attracting money, around, my experience of money gets to be completely different. And it allows me to then shift and alchemize. And it has nothing to do with the people who have had money in the past and have fumbled it. It has nothing to do with my own past of not having money and feeling like I don't know how to create it. Right? It gets to be me in the fully present moment of here is what is being presented to me, and what now? What now? Right? What do I get to do with this now? Now that I'm stepping into this reality, now that I am being equipped with this, this experience, what now? What do I do with this now? Who do I become now? Right? That is being in the present moment. That is magnetism. And knowing that I get to source that power, source that energy from within me. Right? So because if I place it all in the money, when the money goes and ebbs and flows as it does in entrepreneurship, then I also ebb and flow with it. But if I don't ebb and flow with it because I never put my source of energy in the money, then I'm still, and the money can ebb and flow, and it doesn't mean anything about me. Right? So when I allow myself to be still, when I allow myself to be secure, when I allow myself to be grounded in who I know myself to be, and the thing I've done consistently over the years in my business is I have consistently put myself in situations and experiences where I push myself to the very edge. Right? Over and over and over and over and over again. I push myself to the edges. I push myself until I feel like, whoa, that's really scary. I'm standing on the edge of the cliff. I'm looking down and going, wow, that's a big drop. Wow, what's going to happen if I, kind of lean into this? Like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen with my business? What's going to happen with me? Oh my gosh, this is a big experience, right? And so I love that. I love pushing myself over to the edge just enough for me to be like, okay, who am I going to be in this moment? Right? This happened when I made my first investment ever in myself, which was $4,000, which I had never spent anything like that in, I don't think ever. And it was so all at one time, right? Being paid in full, all in one time in my very first coach, not knowing whether or not this was something I wanted to, I knew it was something I wanted to do, but I wasn't sure about the future and how it was going to pan out and what I was going to do. We were in the middle of COVID. It was pandemic. My daughter was home with me. I just got let go from my day job, right? It was like I was up against my edge, and I look back and I'm actually really grateful that I was, pushed a little bit to be like, hey, you said you wanted this thing. You said you want to create this thing. Like, let's go and do it, right? And I have those conversations sometimes with my students who are like, I want to invest. I don't know if I want to invest. I want to, right? And there's like conversations I have with students that are like, I'm ready. Get me in there. Let's go. I'm fucking in. And then there are sometimes people who are like, I think, oh, I'm not sure. Oh, well, okay, maybe. Oh, I don't know. Right? And it's like the cat that's like in and out. And then I can see, right? I'm like, has anything shifted in your business? Right? And it's like, no, it's still hot and cold, or I still haven't signed a client. I'm like, well, that's why. Your energy is dictating your results, right? So you, unsure, not willing to push yourself to the edges, right? And only you can know if it is something that's going to absolutely, right, destroy your nervous system that you are not ready for, or is it something that you can push and edge yourself into because you know you're ready for that challenge. You know that you're ready to go there. You are just feeling the fear, right? Which bravery is just doing the thing while you feel the fear. Every single brave thing I've done in my business has pushed me to the edge, has allowed me to meet myself when I'm in those moments, and then be able to take a big brave step, right? And it isn't always like, oh, I have all of the money in my bank account and fully ready to make this investment. No, I've borrowed money. I've sold things, right? I've gone to like the edges of what I thought was possible to invest in something that I knew was going to shape me, which is why investing in a mentor and investing in masterminds and investing in being with someone in close proximity is so powerful, because it's not just about like the 6 months together or the 12 months together. It's about you going out to make this investment that you didn't think was possible, and the person you become when you make that investment, right? The person you become when you submit that payment, the person that you become when you step into this experience, right? When the first time I paid $20,000 paid in full within 24 hours of application into my first mastermind, that completely shifted who I was as a person. Before the mastermind even started, before I even had a single conversation with this coach, before I jumped on the first coaching call inside that container, my life was completely changed forever. Just by making that investment, I didn't have that money in the bank, right? I borrowed some of the money. I ended up paying it back over time. I knew that this was a decision that I needed to make in my business, and I decided to show up and be the person who was like, yes, I'm going to make this happen come hell or high water. Right? I have someone in my DMs who literally just this morning messaged me and said, I need to be in your mastermind. Right? And I was like, amazing. Come on in. Like, I fucking love this, right? We have a couple spots left. We're going to fill them up before we start in May. And she was like, I need to be in there. I was planning to pay in full, but I'm just going to go with the payment plan for now, right? This is what I'm going to choose. And here's why I want to work with you. I'm like, amazing. I love working with people like that. I love working with someone who's like, I know that I want to work with you. I know that you are the mentor for me. And actually, when I look back to all of the students I've served over the years, the students who have grown exponentially, they've 10x their business, they've grown in such a like exponential way. What has set them apart from other students who are still growing, but maybe at a slower pace, which again, there's no right or wrong. There's no good or bad, right? But if we are going to compare the students that create the most exponential 10x growth from who they were when they first came in, to the business that they've built, the multi-six figures that they've created, right? On track to 7 figures. It is the people who make powerful decisions, and they make them fast. They're not going back and forth and wondering like, oh, well, I maybe want to, oh, I'm not sure. Well, maybe this, oh, well, I don't know. This is scary, right? They feel all those things, right? Don't get me wrong. They're not like excluded from those experiences. They just go through it no matter what. And sometimes I don't even know about it. And they tell me about it afterwards. They tell me about it later, right? Sometimes I have no idea, like this financial student, unless like the financial situation, unless they tell me, right? Like that's not my business. And sometimes they'll tell me like, oh my gosh, when I invested, this was like the last bit of my savings. I was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. They're like, yeah, I didn't say anything, but because it was, I had all of this fire. I made it happen. I was like really pushed. I pushed myself and you pushed me by holding me accountable and being in this mentorship container. I'm like, wow, that's amazing, right? And the students that I see that create that exponential growth, they jump in, they're like, I know what I want. I'm ready to go. They have fear. They have maybe hesitations, right? But they walk themselves through it and they get themselves inside the door, right? Versus someone who's like at the door, they're not really sure, right? Maybe they say like, oh, I'm kind of shopping around for this mentor or that mentor or this person or that person. I don't really know. I'm not really sure. And then, they come back months later and they're still in the exact same situation in their business. They're still dealing with the same things, right? They're still dealing with like, oh, well, still haven't really signed a client. I'm still really scared to show up online. It's like, it just prolongs that's why I say like jumping into mentorship is all the things that you could have avoided. All the problems that you avoided that you never have to deal with. Like my students in Magic Mind, my students in BAA, like there are things that they will never have to worry about because I'm coaching them, because I'm able to point something out to them specifically, because there's something that comes up that is just like, hey, like I get to guide them. I get to guide them back to their inner guidance, right? And they're like, oh my gosh, there's things that they will never know, that they will never have to deal with because we're coaching together, right? That is the absolute beauty of it. And that is what sets some of my students apart from my other students, is when you are ready, you are in, you're like, I'm feeling the fear. I am feeling it, but you know what? I'm letting it turn me on. I'm letting myself alchemize it into something magnetic, something exciting. This is excitement. That's what's happening. And I'm being brave. I'm taking it with me and I'm jumping in anyway. Right? And I'm making a powerful decision from this space. I'm making this powerful decision for me to step into what it looks like for me to truly trust myself, not know what it's going to look like on the other side, right? Not know how it's going to pan out in the future, but I am going to fully trust myself, right? And sometimes that is the beauty of being in a container, is when you know that like you are gonna have to create your own ROI. Like I have like a no refund policy, right? Don't offer refunds. And so when someone knows that and they're step into a container and they're like, I'm gonna have to make this work come hell or high water, right? Like I'm gonna have to enter this experience and I am gonna have to make the most of it, right? It's not on me, right? It's on the students to make the most out of that experience, right? And we meet each other halfway, right? I show up and you know what I'm doing as a coach, you know how I'm holding space, right? But the student has to show up, and this is for everyone who works with clients, right? It's like they need to show up and be able to be pushed to that edge, pushed to that ability to be like, oh my gosh, this is who I get to show up as. And I didn't know that this person was within me. And I didn't know I had this power. And I didn't know I could be this magnetic. And I didn't know I could feel this fulfilled. And I didn't know that under pressure, I can become this person. And I didn't know that when I'm pushed back up against the wall, having to make a big, powerful decision, that I get to step into this new era of who I'm becoming. And that is truly the beauty of mentorship and being in a container and being in a room of other people who are doing the same thing as you, right? When your back is up against the wall, you are under that pressure. You have got to make a powerful decision. You have to show up. You are investing $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, right? I'm flirting with the idea of a six-figure offer, right? That's something that's going to come into fruition very, very soon. A six-figure offer for someone who wants to jump in and they're like, yeah, 6 figures. That's exactly what I'm looking for, right? And for them, it's like, that makes so much sense, right? And that wouldn't be for everybody, right? Just like some of my specific offers aren't for everybody, right? But when you speak to a very specific person, and you speak to different specific people throughout your offers and throughout your product suite, it hits the exact person who desires to be in this container, right? And when you allow yourself to honor that and you're in co-creation with the spirit of your business, you allow yourself to be led by that, right? It feels effortless, right? And you allow yourself to be guided in that way. You allow yourself to step into a reality where it has nothing to do with practicality. It has nothing to do with logic. It has nothing to do with anything outside of yourself, right? That's really what I want you all to take away from this live and from this message, is that everything you get to create has nothing to do with anybody else. It just doesn't, right? And I think when we're in mentorship relationships, that gets so heightened because you realize, like, you might have thoughts about like, oh, but I want more time with my mentor. Oh, I wish she would respond to all these questions that I have. Oh, I wish she would come in and do this for me, right? Like, we have these thoughts of like, oh, well, I want more. And then you realize that it's not even if your mentor came in to hold your hand through every single task throughout the day, right? It wouldn't be in your highest service, right? And actually, the higher that my students climb and the higher they ascend in my product suite, the more space they have to be autonomous and to be sovereign in their own business, right? Someone who's extremely high level won't have the time to be on coaching calls every single week, right? And so when I speak to someone in my mastermind, it's someone who is self-led. It is someone who is so self-led. And then on the coaching calls, they're not just sitting around kind of looking around and wondering like, oh, am I going to pick on them? Like, is the mentor going to call on me? No, they've got their hand in the air. They're asking a question. They're getting what they came for. Right? And that's how I've been. And I've had to train myself in order to be that person. The first mastermind I was in, I probably raised my hand like a handful of times. Right. And sometimes that is the beauty of expansion and growth, is that you like start to ask a question. And because you're in the energy of that container, your question just dissolves in the presence of your mentor. And that is a sign of an amazing mentor, right? Like in the mastermind container I've been in, I actually have not gotten coached live on the calls yet, because every time I go to ask something, gone. Every time I go forth and I have something I want to bring, it's gone, right? And so I've brought things up inside the community, and I've had a one-on-one with my mentor where we brought up some of the things, but it's just like, oh, when you go to ask something and then it's like, oh, never mind. I have my answer, right? Being in the energy of the container is like every single time you have something that comes up, it's like you already know how your mentor is going to respond. You already know what that looks like, right? And it really trains you to stop looking for quick answers. It really trains you to not rely on anybody, in that way, right? And then you get to answer these questions, right? So it's like, I have something in my mind and I'm like, well, I could, and then there's a process I go through as well before I bring something to my mentor. I'm self-coaching myself, right? So that way I'm coming from like a very clean place in terms of my thoughts. And then I bring like, okay, what have I done? How have I kind of thought about this? What's the consensus here before I bring it to my mentor? And then she gets to tell me, okay, here's what I'm feeling into. Here's what I see for you. Right. And then going from there. And sometimes I will ask the questions anyway, just because I'm like, okay, I want to get her insight on this. But there was a lot of times where I go to ask something and it just completely dissipates from my peripheral. Like I'm asking it. And as I'm asking it, it's like, oh, you know what? I just answered my own question. Oh, you know what? I got exactly what I need, right? And that is the power of getting yourself in the room, right? And so for the business owners, for the coaches, for the service providers, where you feel stagnant, you feel like, okay, well, or maybe it isn't even stagnant. Maybe it's like things are going really good, right? Like there's this reality that you've created where it's like, wait, things are really good, right? This is what I desire. This is what I'm calling in. And it gets to go from good to great. It gets to go from great to excellent. It gets to go from excellent to fucking magnificent, right? Like it gets to expand and expand and expand because you're opening up yourself to, wait, it gets better. Wait, it gets better. Oh my gosh, it gets better. Wait, it gets even better. Oh my gosh, it gets better. Oh my gosh, it gets even better than that. Wow. Right? I remember when I first was able to charge $1,000. I remember that being so pivotal. I was shaking when I said it on the call. I was like, okay, it's $1,000. And they were like, yeah. I was like, are you sure? I was like, okay, all right, I'll send you the invoice. Like I was shaking. And I remember the first time someone paid $3,000, I thought, oh my God, I've made it. It couldn't possibly get better than this. Someone's saying yes to $3,000 and she's paying in full. Oh, I remember her paying in full and seeing that money and just staring at it. Right? Remember, I was on food stamps. I was on WIC, right? I relied on these checks that they would print out for me every month. I think it was every month. And I would go in and they would print these checks for me and they would tell you what you could get. You couldn't get anything outside of the checks unless I was using my food stamps card, right? And so it would say like 1 gallon of milk, 1 bucket of strawberries, right? 1 jar of yogurt, right? And then I would bring those items up and sometimes I would accidentally get the wrong thing and they'd be like, sorry, you can't get that. It's not on the check. Right. And I wouldn't have any extra money to be able to put into that unless I wanted to not be able to pay rent the next day or not be able to pay, a phone bill or something like that I also needed to pay for. Right. So that's my background, right? Going into the bank and begging them not to like charge that overdraft fee because I was already in the negatives and I already didn't have money to cover the negatives, right? Like, let alone an overdraft fee for being overdraft, right? And so $3,000, $1,000. I was like, oh my gosh, it can't get better than this. And then $5,000. And I was like, oh my God, $5,000? Wow. Right? And then eventually 6,000 and 7,000, right? And then 10,000. I remember the time that I sold out 3 spots. I had 3 spots open for one-on-one coaching. This was actually right after I submitted my $20,000 investment into my first business mastermind ever. And I opened 3 spots. I had off the back of that energy, I had some bravery, right? I had some juice for me to show up. 3 spots were open for my one-on-one coaching at $10,000. 3 people said yes within 24 hours. I made a $30K day. It was a $30K day. And I remember going, oh my God, this is it. Like, I cannot possibly imagine creating something bigger and better than this. $30,000, right? Like in one day, that is amazing, right? And it was amazing. And there were so many things about that I still remember. And I still remember telling my one-on-one coach at the time, like, on the call, like, oh my God, it happened. This is amazing. And I remember my coach, my one-on-one coach, I was in a mastermind and I had a one-on-one coach and I told my one-on-one coach and she raised her prices after that. 'Cause she's like, my clients are doing 30K days. My prices are going up, right? Like it just was such a beautiful, cyclical effect of like, wow, this is life-changing, right? And when I hit my first 6 figures, when I hit 500K in total revenue, and I just celebrated $1 million in sales revenue, right? So that just goes to show it gets better and better and better and better and better and better. And that is the beauty of mentorship. It's not you investing because things are going wrong. It's not investing from this place of save me, tell me what to do, tell me where to guide me. It's like, no, it gets to be better and we get to co-create a mentorship relationship where things just get better when we are together. right? And that is why Magic Mind went from 6 months to 12 months, is because I'm prioritizing long-term mentorship relationships with a small inner circle mastermind, which, by the way, the spots are filling up for Magic Mind. If you are like, I need to get in that room, just like my client that messaged me this morning and said, I need to be in your mastermind. I need to be inside Magic Mind, right? I am going to make it work, and here's how I'm going to make it work. Tell me my options. I will choose one. Let's go. She was so ready, right? And it was so beautiful for me to like open up my DMs and get that message from her in a voice note and be like, I'm ready. I wanted to pay you in full. And you know what? If it's going to be payment plan, it's going to be payment plan. It's okay. Let's do it. Let me just get in there. I might not have the money by the time we start in May, but I want to be there May 1st in your mastermind. I'm meant to be in there, right? And I was like, I love you. Let's fucking go. Those are the types of women that I work with, right? Especially inside the mastermind, right? It's like, I'm ready to be in there. And so many of my students that have started in Business Activation Academy, which is my signature course for someone who's building out their offer, their first main offer, working with their first clients, building out their product suite, they've ascended into Magic Mind, sometimes in as little as months. And I had a student actually that joined BAA, and then within the next like 2 months, right, she had like binged the content, she'd come to the coaching calls, and she was like, I want to be inside Magic Mind. Here's why, right? And I was like, let's fucking go, right? And so that is such a powerful way of stepping into mentorship. That is such a powerful way of stepping into a mentorship relationship, right? Like, I am not just a machine that my students plug into and then we go, okay, well, here's like the questions and here's the answers. No, here's how I guide you back to yourself. And after working together for X amount of months, years, some of my students I've worked with years, I have a one-on-one client. We started working together in 2021. It's 2024. We're still working together one-on-one, right? And she's just like, yeah, let's just keep going. Like, let's go, right? Like, that is the beauty. That is the power of mentorship. It is a relationship, right? Is a relationship where you grow with someone, you expand with someone, right? You don't have to do it. No one's holding you to it, but you desire to do it because why not? If all of this is growing and all of this is expanding and you are evolving, right? And you are evolving in such beautiful ways, why not? Right? Like, why not? So that is the beauty of magnetism. That is the beauty of power. That is the beauty of mentorship. And if you are feeling the nudge, if you've been tapped by Magic Mind, the mastermind, it's only a matter of time. You're going to be in here with us, and I desire for you to be in this container so deeply, which is why I can't stop talking about it. And we have a couple of spots left before we start in May. Other than that, you'll have to wait for another spot to open up. Or if I add more spots to the container, again, it is an inner circle, close proximity mastermind. So for the integrity of the container and for these women, I desire it right now to be a small group mastermind. Maybe that'll change at some point, but this is what feels really good to me right now. And to honor that, to honor the women and to honor the container, that's why we have a certain number of spots. So if you're feeling the pull, now is the time to reach out. Like, these spots are going, and I'm expecting them to be gone by the time we start in May. So DM me. I would love to have you inside the mastermind. If you have questions, you want to explore, want to have a conversation, let's do that. If you're not quite ready for the mastermind, you want to start at Business Activation Academy, my amazing signature program, amazing community, best community on the planet, DM me as well. We can have that conversation. All right. Mwah. I love you all so much. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Thank you so much for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe. If this episode resonated with you, please take a screenshot, share it on your Instagram stories, and tag me at tiffanychung.co. I truly appreciate interacting with every one of you. Catch you all on the next one.